will they be able to get there?
No.
Only movement from Venom, so Venom should make it back, yep.
So Bucky.
Oh, Bucky with the jump back!
He killed, wait, he got rid of Naga!
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Global Gaming Network channel. After a wacky and wild weekend, whether you were watching Marvel Rivals, SuperNova, or even Counterstrike, you let us know what you were most in store for. But we got you covered on all of the news of what just transpired this past weekend. As always, my name is Andy. Joining with me is Chris, and cross-eyed as we were this past weekend were.
Oh, definitely cross-eyed. There was a lot going on, as you said, Marvel Rivals, but we also had League of Legends, we had FC going off at EWC. What wasn't playing this weekend is the question.
That's the great question, right? I mean, over in Saudi Arabia for Esports World Cup, you thought was the only bonanza happening throughout the entire December. We got action going all the way across the globe. We're going to be starting off with Guangzhou, China, of course. For Marvel Rivals, their mid-season invitational for Ignite 2025 has just concluded their opening for a LAN. And a lot of teams showed out for all of their different strengths, for all of the intents and purposes. This was a massive tournament from play-in stages all the way towards a grand finals that absolutely banged. We had regional representation from everywhere, including Australia, including China, South Korea, North America, and Europe. Chris, it was a fun weekend.
It did, but let's start off with one of the EU. Actually, let's take a look at that prize pool first. $500,000 on the line, a part of a $3.5 million from the Ignite series in total. Let's jump into some of these games and look at some of these teams that we had. As you talked about, we had Envy, we had Rad, Nova. All these teams were actually trying to get and playing into the play-in stage to actually get to the main event. But let's start off with Envy, the American representative. They were pretty much winning everything that you could think of, dominating the NA scene, but kind of fell short to get into this tournament. Ended up having to play through that play-in stage just to make it to the main stage.
Yeah, NV going up against 100 Thieves Sentinels has been a conversation for NA Marvel Rivals for quite some time. But on the other side, Rad Esports has a very similar conversation, but over in the European region. Of course, for Rad Esports, have a lot of tenured individuals across the entirety of this team. They are the number one from the season one of the Ignite for the region. Players probably most notable, jump off the page for all you Overwatch fans. Naga is back into attendance, and well, he didn't do anything in this opening. This was the play-in matchup. Of course, NV were able to win this 2-0. Towards the end, this was the one of many different matches that these two ended up having against each other. So we'll continue to tailor the conversation of, wow, these two teams definitely were playing the best Marvel Rivals. But as far as Envy is concerned, they did a good enough job to be able to 2-0 Gen G, then Rad Esports. That means that they qualified over towards the main stage. Though Rad Esports, they got knocked down to the lower bracket, they also qualified for the main stage, creating this double elimination bracket.
And what a bracket it was. I mean, even there you see Citadel Gaming, formerly BP, just kind of on a tear as well, but it would end up falling to Envy. And then once again, as you said, we would end up seeing Envy and Brad play once again in the round two. And here we're gonna take a little bit of the gameplay. We do see once again, we saw a Jeff clip at the beginning. We're gonna see another one, this one jumping off the edge and taking almost everyone with him.
Yeah, Nero's Jeff is very, very good. Very annoying as a character may be. Though same thing could be said for all of Envy. For their DPS players were really just showing up as far as this best of 5 was concerned. The only time that they lost was the hybrid Midtown. But other than that, I mean, taking map 1, maps 2 and 3, their Central Park run that we were able to get, and Hall of Dahlia to be able to get that final capture point was absolutely historic. Cal, I thought, was doing a lot on that Adam Warlock. Again, is a very niche pick, but you do end up seeing it from recent buffs that come through in Envy. Off of beating Rad in that winner's semifinals, it would not just be enough. Rad in that lower bracket, much in the playoff stage, had their work cut out for them. This was a team that was giving Envy a lot of problems in their regional playoffs, Chris. Was 100 Thieves, and Rad disposed of them.
Yeah, and this is kind of what we're seeing from that playing bracket. Rad just coming back on another tear once again, but then we see this coming all the way again to it. We see Envy versus Rad once again showing up in the grand finals, and this time though Rad would come out to play, and they just completely showed a different side of them what we saw in the playing brackets and through the group stage of when they played against Envy in those round number 2s. But this time going into it, they would come back in, but there it would be Envy clutching up that game number 2 to tie up the series 1-1. But Rad once again came in with the game plan coming into game number 3.
Yeah, immediate into game number 3 for Hell's Heaven, of course, playing around all these different points and payloads can caused a certain amount of ruckus. Window on the Captain America pick was trying to get the better of the 1v1 versus Trust Me, but sometimes Trust Me you just kind of lose sight of that payload. You overextend just a little bit. So we're going to go in towards the final few moments here as far as the map number 3 is concerned. Just a lot of big trades, but it's Marvel Rivals at the end of the day. If you can get some numbers, you're in a really good spot. Oh, I'm sorry. This is going all the way back towards the tail end. Spider Islands was where this one was going to be concluding at. In Rad, they were able to win the penultimate team fight, setting up for numbers right outside their base to get the payload just over the hump and complete the lower bracket run. From losing to Envy in the upper bracket semifinals to then beating OUG, beating Citadel Gaming, 100 Thieves 3-0. The NA's probably second best team just by stature, but hey, then going in and beating your own demons from the entire tournament. Not only did Envy beat 100 Thieves 3-0 in the winners finals, but they beat Rad Esports not once, but twice, play-in stage, and then in the upper semifinals to then lose in 6 maps and grands. It was absolute cinema.
Yeah, third time is a charm for Rad, able to pull it out. That grand finals is the only game that matters at the end of the day. They will be going home, our midseason invitational champions. Congratulations to Rad on that win.
Yep, shout out Rad, of course. The only team that they lost to, as I was hinting at, was Envy. So I guess you're feeling pretty good about that. Going back home to EMEA, EU. Same thing for Envy. Once we do end up getting those Season 2 Ignite regional competitions, we will have all of that information for you here on Today Esports. But now we're going to be shifting our focus over towards Blast. And if you're unfamiliar, Blast is currently going on with their second season as far as the opening is concerned for their phases before we end up seeing the playoff bracket later this week. It was a real good time. Again, firm handshakes all around to all included. Maybe a handful of individuals would definitely know this. Sportsmanship also being showcased by ENCE, a team that we have not seen in quite some time, over some house favorites of the Mongolz. Check this out.
This morning. So, because obviously we started the games a little bit earlier, maybe the Mongolz got mixed up with some timing, so they were a little bit late, let's just say, to the veto. By a little bit, I mean a lot of it. So, to sum it up, Mongolz showed up late to the veto. That means they lost veto advantage and all 3 tack timeouts in map number 1. ENCE got the offer to dictate the veto. What did they do though, Jacob?
Well, they decided to play the sportsmanship card and say, no, we do a normal veto. You know, we respect that you were late, but we want to do a normal veto. So what could have happened was ENCE would be able to pick all 3 maps, as far as I'm aware, which would have been hilarious, because then Train could have been picked by ENCE, a map that the Mongolz doesn't play. But I think, Peter, there's also something to be said about good sportsmanship, and maybe ENCE also making sure not to lose face. Imagine picking all 3 maps and still losing, which I think would have been the case.
Pimp brings up a really good point, too. Being able to pick all 3 maps, you know as well from a competitive history, is great. You can set yourself up for a successful best of 5, and they took the sportsmanship card. No Train. Mongolz had no timeouts in the map 1, but they still won it.
Yeah, they still did. And, well, we do have to give a round of applause for ENCE for that sportsmanship card. We love to see it. Hopefully they can, start getting a little bit better as the time goes on. Of course, Mongolz did make their way into that second stage, or sorry, the land stage of the Blast premiere, but we're going to go over some of the games and see how some of the teams made their way there. We're going to start off with Navi versus Australis, though. We'll have to go into this. This is the first time in 7 years that Navi did not make a land.
Yeah, first time in quite some time. Here, take a look at this coming out from Navi. They struggled all weekend.
On for the ace now. Only Alexi left. Yabi will collect it. And the comeback still flowing here for Australis.
Huge shutdown on the B side. There is no way in for Navi right now. They may have found that entry. They had a 5-on-1 on B, and Yabi multi-kill, mow down, gets out the lawnmower. All 5 kills. And this would, Harry, be our first bounty claimed from the most wanted, or for the most, yeah, from the most wanted. Yeah. I mean, both teams have bounties at every game.
Just a lot of frustration on Alexi V's face, and rightfully so. Again, if you go back to after Navi took that first map against Australis on that Dust 2, all of production, casters, hosts included, sat there and said, it's going to be looking like it's the end of Hooksy and Australis as far as the tournament is concerned. They win Inferno 13-7, smack them around on Nuke 13-2 to eliminate Navi for the first playoff berth in 7 years.
Yeah, and I was just looking at that 13-2. It's just crazy, especially after you come off of a little bit of a close map 1, but you're still getting that win. You expect that momentum to be behind them, especially this Navi team that we've talked about so much over the course of this year so far. They're dropping. The last time this happened was Katowice in 2018. 17. You know, can you imagine this historic club just completely falling off like that? They're going to have to really think about how they're going to move forward with this. But we do have, you know, some tweets that we saw from them going across. But, you know, that is just how it is at the end of the day. But, of course, everything is not as simple as it may seem. And that's going to set us up for our next one. BC Gaming has signed Simple, and Simple, unfortunately, did not do too well.
Yeah, no, Simple did not have the greatest showcasing as far as his combat score is concerned and all other stats. You expect a lot out of Simple, but can you carry an entire team as an AWPer? FaZe thought so, and then they did not do so whatsoever. Going back and watching this game of BC Game versus Cybershoke, it was very, very interesting, right? There was a lot of opportunities for BC Game to be able to close out a lot of rounds, but like the riflers were just not showing up. They were missing more sprays than anything. It was just a very, very strange showcasing altogether. But hey, if Simple's playing, he's competing, he's happy, I'm happy for my GOAT.
2 thumbs up there. Unfortunately, his rating was not 2 thumbs up with a 1.01. Unfortunately for him, not doing the best there. And talking about not doing the best, let's talk about Donk and Spirit versus G2. Donk would have his lowest rating coming into this game, starting at only a 0.98. He went 40 and 50 across the series. This is just not the Donk we've seen, especially coming off of that massive win that they just had in the previous major there. So Donk coming out, maybe it's just the, you know, not in that LAN setting, not feeling the best exactly, you know, having to sit at home and play these matches could have gone into the fact of this. They would still end up winning, but this is what we expect him to kind of put a really big score up, especially in that rating, just not really doing it. Is it frustrations or is it just the environment? Who knows right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're Spirit, I guess you do have an ounce of complacency coming away from that massive championship that we just had at Cologne versus Mouse 3-0, but you know as well as I do, Chris, that Donk, you'll see it on his frustrations and a little bit of alleviation there at the end of the Ancient as well. Like, he holds himself up to the higher standard. Again, clearing what he has done in his young 18-month career, he definitely holds himself up to a higher standard. Complacency should not be a word within Donk's vernacular. So, unfortunately, his streak does come to an end as far as positive KD ratio is concerned. But for the first time ever, as far as a lower KD streak or ADR is concerned from Donk, his team actually were able to win a map. So big praises to the rest of Team Spirit. You don't need the #1 rifle in the world to carry you through everything. But as we continue on, as far as Blast is concerned, we got matches that are still going on in the end of the week. We're going to be giving all of the draws its time. Once we do end up knowing that seeding, we'll be sure to give you a certain amount of insight. Plus, we got some more Blast information coming on down the road as far as this episode is concerned. Now we're jumping over towards the District of Columbia, of course, for SuperNova, formerly known as Super Smash Con. If you know, you know. If you don't, listen up. This is the biggest Super Smash Brothers tournament every year. It always happens at the same place in DC. Some of the numbers for some of the entrants was absolutely electric. Biggest Melee tournament of all time. That game came out when you were probably still in diapers watching this at home. Smash Ultimate, biggest tournament of all time. It completely triumphs over what Kaguribi was able to do in Japan as Nintendo's very own tournament. So we got wonderful clips coming back from this. Again, as far as the tournament is concerned, every single Super Smash Bros. Tournament was played, including Nintendo 64 Super Smash Bros. We had combo contests, as we always do. And of course, we got to talk about the GOAT coming through with the no shoesies, playing off of 4 different characters, all the inputs with the Yoshi, charge shot, slow down. Bang! I love SuperNova, man.
This is crazy. And you can even just tell from having all the big faces on the individual cams watching this, the pop-off is deserved. But it wasn't even the best one in my opinion. We're going to see continued pop-offs here. And this is using 3 controllers, 2 on the feet, 1 on the hand. Just completely perfect everything here. Look, grabs him into the item, goes over smash, blows him back, hits him once more off the screen. This is just crazy.
I'm pretty sure he did this second try too, and being able to do that in the finals, that actually gave him the perfect score of 50. And like you said, you had a tailored group of judges. There's one of them right now. It's Liquid Hungry Box back again in another top 8, this time for Melee. And look, if Hungry Box is alive in a tournament, you feel like Puff was about to be making a run. He ended up starting in the lower bracket to start the top 8 tournament, taking down Moki 3-1, you saw right there, being able to get the better of Ginger, the world's #1 Falco now. And that set him up to go up against Cody Schwab, who is undeniable. Cody Schwab lost to Zayn in winners finals, only taking a single game, and then going into grand finals. Cody Schwab almost pushed it to a bracket reset, but Zayn, undeniable. Cody Schwab is ranked #1 in the world so far, and Zayn made a statement with that winners finals pop-off.
Yeah, and going into this Hungry Box, had a great start off to this losers finals. Unfortunately, Cody Schwab just leveled up throughout the losers finals, making it all the way back to the grand finals to get this rematch versus Zayn. And they would both go at it this entire time. I was watching with Eli in our office, and I was having a great time with him explaining everything to me. But this was just crazy. The movement from both of these players is just out of this world. Everything seems to be perfect for them, but Zayn just so crisp and perfect with all of his images.
Yeah, I heard Bam ended up talking about it, right? Like, these guys are artists, and their characters are but humble canvases. Like, these guys, they're frame perfect, trapping in Super Smash Bros. Melee. If you're unaware, it's just like, you have to be frame perfect. Re-grab, down to the dare, setting up for the final kill. Jab locking at the ledge was Zayn's biggest feat versus the Spaceys all weekend. And he found good strides in that, being able to deny the bracket reset, taking the Melee championship, all from the winners bracket side. 3-0ing Moki, being able to 3-1 Cody Schwab in the winners finals, and then game 5, versus Cody Schwab, your Melee champion.
Yes, and now we are going to move over to Ultimate, and we had a almost East Coast local boy from Georgia, Jazzo over here on the can, just coming out of nowhere, making it to top 8. And look at this pop-off. This poor chair, it didn't do anything, but it helped him out there. It's going to take a little bit of that, but you can see how much making top 8 means.
Yeah, he's only ever made top 16, so he finally eclipsed himself, being able to go up against some of the world's best. He made it to a top 8. His Ken was absolutely moving. Jab, aerial confirms to true shore use, but again, he's going up against Onan. He is Steve. He is Minecraft character, and he brought it all the way to a very respectable place. I will hand it out to Jazzo. He made Onan sweat into a game 5 Enderman. Last stock situation, diamond pickaxe spike. That's going to be true every single time. But the sportsmanship that comes through here at the end is just absolutely lovely.
Yes, and I mean, this one was also a lot of fun to watch, but going into these winner semis, we have Hurt here just taking it out. And I mean, both of these players were coming, I was watching this and trying to keep up with them, and it was going so fast off of it. And then we get into losers quarters with Spargo. This was just crazy here.
Off the finishing touches was insane. That was actually a rematch for top 128, where Peanut actually knocked Spargo, world's #1, down to the lower bracket, playing the Rockman. Yeah, you heard that right, but Spargo, lower bracket phase, definitely want him to do well. He would then go up to face, who was it there in the lower bracket? The Min, Mia. So he ended up facing Mia on the ARMS character. Very difficult matchup, even for Cloud. Loses that one 1-3, Hurt throughout the entirety. Lost to Mia in the upper finals. Had to drop down to face Mia again in the lower finals. And Mia would get the run back. The Min versus the Sonic worked a lot better than versus the Snake, and was able to eliminate Hurt there at top 3, which meant it was a date there in grand finals for Mia, going up against the Game & Watch this time around, out of door Migi. And honestly speaking, I don't know which one is more disjointed or which one is the more broken matchup, but Dormigi coming away from that lower bracket was truly destined to try to do something out of this world. But when I tell you Mia was playing different, and when I tell you that Min is a broken A character, I mean it.
Oh yeah, you saw it there. There goes the confetti. Happy picking up another winner from Ultimate. And, well, Mia takes the #1, takes down Dormigi, as you said, to win that. Great job from them. They're going to be especially happy winning that. But that's not all we have coming out. Let's go ahead and move off some of the controllers and move over to some mouse and keyboard for EWC.
Now jumping over across the pond for the dunes of Saudi Arabia on the Esports Boulevard. You thought we forgot about talking about club championship points. We'll give you the update of that one at the end of this run through. Starting off with Rainbow Six Siege. If you're unaware, this game absolutely delivered on a barn burner of a tournament, Chris.
It really did, and we had some really back and forth. And then on top of this, we had, just much like Marvel Rivals, teams coming in from groups and underdogs taking it all the way to the grand finals. Well, it'll tell you how we got there for these teams. You know, unfortunately for BP, one of the big teams coming into it ultimately did not make it all the way through there. As you see, they did end up losing out to Furia in those quarterfinals. But then we have Teamsecert, though, making their way as one of the dark horses all the way to those finals.
Dark horse, they didn't lose a single map. You go back towards group stage, all best of ones to even take down W7N and Falcons in that opening best of one was absolutely Herculean. And then they go in towards playoffs. You saw there with the run, 2-0 versus VP. Where did they go? Sorry, no, I'm completely spaced around. They 2-0'd Weibo, 2-0'd Space Station, and then met G2 in the grand finals where they didn't drop a single map all tournament long. To say that they were undeniable coming into this tournament would be absolutely putting it brief. So big shout outs to Teamsecert putting themselves up on the board, potentially for some club championship points to be yoinked away, not only from Falcons, but from also VP, the only two teams at Rainbow Six for EWC to maybe put a leg in for club championship points. This was just all Teamsecert.
Yeah, quadra kill starting off the clips here against G2. Looking for that Penta, trying to get number 5 and get the ace. Unfortunately, they just wouldn't be able to get it as the teammate. They wanted to finish out the round and make sure they got it secured. But here we go. They're starting off their run here against G2 in such a great fashion. G2 trying to battle back, though. Unfortunately for them, just not able to quite be able to find some of these maps here, falling just short of flawless round coming out of Teamsecert.
Yeah, being able to get the 4-round defensive side, 3 offensive rounds would put them over the hump. 7-4 was that map number 1. Then over towards Clubhouses, where you really started to feel a certain leg up in the situation. Dude, Teamsecert's defense throughout all of this, just statistically, absolutely amazing. Their setups, very difficult to try to depict. Running out of time, Teamsecert go off 2-0.
Yep, and now on to Nighthaven Labs. Again, this would be a little bit of a closer one, only finishing 8-7 in favor of Teamsecert. G2 trying to battle back, but they just wouldn't be able to find it out. Once again, they would only win 2 defensive rounds, so this means the attack from Teamsecert on this map, though, once again, just overcame what G2 Esports was able to do. We see them looking around the corner, trying to find the final kill on there. They're going to be looking around the bomb. There it is. They are going to get it, picking up another win for them in this column.
Yeah, no one anticipated Secret to be playing this well throughout the entire day. But watch this last little play, a little 1v3, walks in with the shotgun, bing, bang, boom, homie's got a pumpy. Being able to take them all down there to be able to win the round and thus being able to go up 2-0 in the series. Here's that Nighthaven Labs that you were talking about, Chris. And again, this was the most competitive map that we had all throughout grand finals. And for the fact that it took G2 Esports all the way to a map 3 to stop Teamsecert, it really does say something just about their dominance. Being able to get through so many clutches, G2 starting to put themselves on the board. They led in this series with having a stellar offense to open things up.
They did, but again, as we said, that defense just not really working out for them. And as we can see here, just what they're trying to get on the board, just not enough. Dude, Secret was beaming them the whole entire time here, and this run from them just actually, we saw that deck pause trying to come out, but once again, it is here. They would end up evening it up here when we get to 7-7, trying to put them finally ahead, trying to see if they can get this one win. As we talked about, unfortunately for them, just would not be enough, despite some kind of clutch kills coming out of here from the side of G2. They would win that attacking round, leading it to this final round that we have here. At the end of the day, though, Teamsecert in this final clip that we have would be it. They would win this and win EWC for Rainbow Six Siege, giving Teamsecert some much-needed club points here.
Yeah, I mean, Teamsecert going to be able to walk away with 1,000 club point championships, but even more so for Teamsecert. Again, nobody anticipated this. Them coming through from the MENA qualifiers to be able to do exactly what they did in that opening round matchup versus Teamfalcons, beating them 8-6. We'll talk more about that just in a few moments, but then going over through playoffs, not dropping a single map is so rare. No matter the esport that you compete in, not dropping a map, going flawless, as close some of those shaves were, was absolutely electric stuff coming through from Teamsecert. Again, getting those 1,000 club championship points will give you the status quo on where they are located at towards the latter half of the show. But talking about Falcons again, that's the team coming in towards this one. They were EWC champions last year, much like how everybody in the crowd, I'm sure, was anticipating for Falcons to do well. They didn't.
They did not, and as you said, defending champions, they came in and they were defeated by Secret. They would end up losing to the grand champions, so maybe if there's any little bit of consolation, it is that you did lose to the best of this tournament. But once again, you come into this expecting to win, and they just completely faltered trying to get out of it. We're going to take a look at the Group B bracket here. We did see Falcons losing to Secret in that upper bracket 1, and then ultimately losing to Space Station Gaming to get knocked out.
Yeah, they ended up losing the Nighthaven Labs 7-3, and then the Border 8-7. So they forced out OT, or extended rounds, excuse me, in that map number 2, but cannot get towards that consulate for a map number 3. So yeah, Falcons getting DFR'd in their groups, getting knocked out just way too early. Not exactly what a lot were anticipating, because this should have been a very easy route for them. You know, for all intents and purposes, coming in towards this one for Falcons, they are the Europe MENA League, the number 2 seed coming in towards this one. So outside of G2, they were the preferred for this Group B, the number 1 seed, I guess you could point them at for Group B. They go up against what is supposed to be a weaker Teamsecert, and they knocked them right on their arse.
Oh, they did. I mean, we took a look at those clips versus G2, but we're getting almost another clip package for Secret once again, even though we're talking about Falcons here. And again, it was just what they were unable to come up with a game plan that seemed to be able to match what Teamsecert were able to do. We were again seeing Teamsecert just completely dominating and once again popping off, this time on the Falcons though.
And now down here for the Space Station lower round matchup for the Group B survival. Map 1 was not even close, like I was already talking about it. That Nighthaven Labs 7-3, it was a massive defensive half. Falcons could not find any route to get in towards the defensive solitude that was Space Station Gaming there on Nighthaven Labs, thus setting up the conclusion here on Border. Much better, I would say, as far as the offense is concerned. You can tell that Falcons on their map pick were definitely a lot more in the flow, I suppose, to being able to get the information from the camp stage and being able to get the breaks as far as the setups are concerned. But then it came down towards the other side. 4 offensive rounds, traded for 4 offensive rounds, meant we go for an extra 2 defensive rounds. And as we were already stating, from the previous map that was played, SSG's defense was just so good. Their adaptations coming in towards the latter 2 defensive rounds was absolutely sublime to send the Falcons packing home.
Yep, unfortunately, Falcons did have their wings clipped in Rainbow Six Siege, and it would be, once again, as we talked about, Secret making all the way through their group to make it to that main stage, and then ultimately as our grand final winners, so congratulations to them. Unfortunately, Falcons, though, will have to see what they can do when the next Siege tournament comes up to rectify their fall here at EWC. But once again, those club points are going to be nice for Teamsecert going forward. We'll talk more about those club points a little bit later and how everyone is stacking up in EWC as we are heading into, I believe, week 6 now, correct?
Yeah, we're reaching towards the tail end. Again, it's 8 weeks of absolute summer bonanza going on as far as Esports World Cup is concerned. We got more games to talk about later on in this show. But now we're going to be shifting our focus over towards the Rift for some League of Legends. Chris, go ahead and take it away.
Yep, well, League of Legends is in full swing. Finally, all regions are competing, and a lot of them are trying to make their way towards the playoffs. We do have some teams already qualified for playoffs, and then we also have LTA, who has finalized their pick and play phase. Let's go ahead and take a look at what Loki had to say as the number 1 seed for LTA North.
I want to get your thoughts on Loki. Why'd you pick Shopify Rebellion?
I feel like SR is getting better than before from split to playoff, but Parafox is not getting better than before, so that's why I chose SR.
Are your thoughts?
Well, there you have it. Loki and C9 decided to pick Shopify Rebellion as one of the teams that they could play against from the side of FlyQuest, Team Liquid, or Shopify Rebellion. They did pick that thinking that would be their best way to make it through to the next stage. Let's go ahead and take a look at what happened throughout. So the rest of it, we're going to talk about what happened across all the regions, but let's jump into LTA North first at the end of week 3 and the end of our pick and play phase. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Once again, we did see teams play, and it would be FlyQuest, though, who would be also going undefeated after their win against Lion. These two teams did not have to play each other, FlyQuest and C9, as the teams on the lower seed and who had the worst, I would have to say, series score. We ended up picking a team with a better series score. Lions did have to play FlyQuest due to who else they played against. So we did see them picking up a loss there. FlyQuest would go 3-0. C9, though, would end up playing and picking, going against Team Liquid. They would also win their game 2-0 in their series score 3-0. And here we see them at the end, though. They did get first pick, as I said, getting that first place spot, so they would pick Shopify Rebellion once again to go into the next phase, which is our first elimination phase to go into the remaining of the LTA North split. We take a look at the bracket here. C9 against Shopify Rebellion, FlyQuest versus Team Liquid. Then on the other end, DSG would end up picking Dignitas, who they just previously beat in this week 3, and then Lion has picked 100 Thieves as their opponents in that lower bracket. So we have LTA North in full swing, but LTA North is not the only league that we're going to go over. LTA South did finish as well. We're going to go ahead and jump into there, as we did have Red Canids actually picking up a win against Pain, and they would end up getting first in their bracket going into that, as they ended up almost having a 4-way tie for that first spot. But after winning that 2-0, they would ultimately have enough of that game wins over the series wins to end up picking up the first place in LTA South. It's a great job for them so far. And I mean, take a look at this. Pain Gaming, who just beat Furia, ends up falling to Red in a pretty dominating game from Red Canids here. This team just looks really good, and LTA South right now is just the Wild West.
Yeah, it surely seems that way. I mean, Pain Gaming, I thought we were going to be the real deal, especially coming away from the split that we got after EWC and MSI, but this Red Canids team, like you were saying, definitely came out with the heat.
Yeah, they did. And Furia ended up falling, so all teams except for Red Canids are going to be 2-1, which means once again Red Canids, as we saw for LTA North, would have their first pick. So they would end up going into their couple of picks for that team to see who they want to end up going against. For LTA South, we would end up having Red Canids picking Pain Gaming once again, so we're kind of seeing another mirror match. They just beat him, so they obviously think they can beat him once again. Their other opponents would have been Furia or Vivo Keystars, both of them very good teams. Furia, though, probably one of the teams that most people probably didn't expect to go 2-1, so they probably didn't want to play against that, and since they just beat Pain, why not try to face them once again a week later to see if you can get that win. On the opposite end of the lower bracket, we'll have Loud versus Fluxo, and then Isarius versus Leviathan to finish up that lower bracket to see who will qualify for the next stage of the LTA. So LTA is wrapping up, getting into their next stage to see who will either qualify for Worlds and then go to the LTA Championship in Dallas to see who will be that third seed for LTA. But of course, we'll get there when we get there and talk about Worlds at a later time. But let's go ahead and jump into LEC. LEC did start a week later from most of the other regions, so they're only into week 2, but we did have a revenge match finally between Koi and KC. KC missing out on their international appearance for MSI because of 2 games back-to-back against Koi, and it looks like they would finally get their revenge as they went into that week 2 game. But it was not as close as it may seem after game number 1. We'll take a look at some of those clips because boy did KC really get their revenge in that game number 3, especially against a Koi who kind of looked really good coming off of game number 2. But game number 1, it was all KC into this game. They're starting off with that 2-0 in that group. I believe it's Group A for the side of LEC right now, and they would just completely dominate Koi in this first game. And I can't say this enough right now that KC were really looking forward towards this revenge match. They missed out on MSI and EWC because of 2 losses to Koi in those playoffs. And right now, it looked like Koi would try to be coming back, a really drawn out game in number 3, but ultimately it would be Targamas getting that flank. And once again, KC just seemed to be one step ahead in this game number 3 versus Koi. Koi faltering a little bit, not sure if they were a little bit rusty coming off of only playing 1 game previously to the one of KC. But KC, once again, they get the revenge. They're going to be leading the top of their group 2-0 right now in the LEC. So great job to them. On other ends, we did have finally G2 playing as well. But again, yes, it was Group A that they did end up going 3-0 with. Koi right now will be sitting 1-1, and then GX is going to be following up a little bit behind them. But let's go ahead and jump into a little bit more of our regions, as we did have LCK over in Korea. We have 3 teams that have finally started to make their playoff appearance. Jinji has already made theirs, but we would have HLE and T1 both making their or securing their playoffs for the LEC off the back of wins against Nongshim Red Forest, unfortunately. And as Red Forest would be the deciding factor for a couple of these teams in that Legends group to make it into playoffs. So we do have HLE off of their win securing playoffs for them in a little bit of a later on the weeks go on, and then we would have T1 after their loss to Gen.G would have to win one more. It would be this win against NS Red Forest as well to secure their playoff groups. There it is, the curtain call coming out from Yumayushi to secure that. But it would be this win versus KT Rolster. Gen.G though would secure their round 2. So not only did they secure playoffs and did they secure their world's spot, but now they've secured round 2. No one can get them. So remember the split rounds 1 and 2, which was that second split, did carry over into round number split 3, the rounds 3 through 5. So that gives them the little bit of more of a higher win rate despite losing one match to T1. Right now, Gen.G back on top. They got their revenge match, and then with their second win in that week number 12, are going to go ahead and move right into round 2 when playoffs do start. But let's go ahead and jump into the LPL. LPL has been in full swing. They have been massively going through games right now, and BLG did make a change in the jungle. They picked up Shadow going into split 3, and since they are now 7-0. They are completely running the LPL right now. They have not dropped a game. Their game versus WE here, a little bit close though, but Shadow has been really picking it up. Game 1 on the Pantheon did an amazing job, ended up going like 10-5 and 2, I believe, and then on this game on the Sejuani, playing more of a support role. As you see, 1, 2, and 14, still doing an amazing job. Seems to pick up what the team has been lacking and what they are lacking going into MSI and into EWC. It seems that they have finally found their pace and are looking to be that top contender in the LPL right now. But let's go ahead and jump into LCP. LCP, the Pacific region, has also concluded their group stage and are going to be going into another of their group breaker. But we did have SHG versus DFM to see who would get into that group breaker play, and it ultimately would be SHG who would end up breaking this tie between these two teams in that lower group to make sure that they can get through the group breaker and see if they can make it into the playoffs with a higher standing. Then once again, very close series between both of these teams, but ultimately it would be SHG at the end of the day coming out with the amazing plays to finish this off. Getting that win means that they do get to go to that group breaker where they'll end up playing the the third and fourth out of the top group, and then they'll join the remaining players from Vikings Esports as well to face off versus PSG Talent and GAM. Whoever wins those will have a higher seed going into the next stages for the LCP. So we'll stay tuned and see how those play out in the next 2 weeks to see who gets that higher seed and who will eventually get knocked out as they go into their playoffs as well. So League of Legends swinging in full force, all the teams trying to make playoffs, because guess what, Worlds is around the corner in the next coming month, so they'll want to be on top of their game to make sure that they can get the spot for Worlds and to see who can lift that trophy at the end of the year. All right, but guess what? Let's go ahead and jump into another Riot Sphere, and let's go to their shooty shoot game as VCT is also trying to make their way towards Masters.
Sure, yeah, let's go ahead and talk about some Valorant. We're going to be starting off with some unfortunate news, starting off with the EMEA scene for both Gentlemates and Apex. Unfortunately, they did not do more than enough throughout their entirety of their season to then be able to retain their spot, and they are unfortunately not able to compete in Ascension to regain their slot. So we'll have to see what the future is for them. But we're going to start off with the Pacific region, starting off with PRX versus Talon. PaperX, if you're unfamiliar, they are your Masters Toronto champion. They came up short versus Fnatic in winter semifinals back in EWC, but they've been absolutely running amok and have been tested with the other APAC teams. Starting here versus this Talon roster, this was for the first seed and a first round bye as far as their playoff bracket is concerned. And PaperX got tested on the bye, but were quick to make sure that everybody, including Talon, remember that they are the #1 team.
Yep, and after this, as we can see, the final moments there, we would move over to Icebox, and once again, it would actually go the distance and a little bit more. Talon just really trying to figure out a way to get back into this game, but PaperX would show us why they were the Masters, Vancouver Masters champions, and would end up taking it in overtime, going 16-14. But again, they have been taking the distance by multiple teams so far in this Pacific region.
Yep, only a handful of overtimes required going in towards that second one. Something had himself an absolute generational series as far as this one is concerned. An even better Icebox you expect for something to be right at home. Here are those stats stats coming through for it. The Jet, absolutely historic when it comes down to Icebox. Really need that to be on point. Thigh, unfortunately, not there, but 32 and 19, 290 ACS is absolutely insane. And here is that playoff bracket again. Paper X, they will get that round 1 bye. They'll face T1 or RRQ, and DRX got the #1 seed coming out from Group Alpha, so they will be facing Nakshim, Red Force, or Talon, depending on how things do continue on. But you can see Detonation, Focus Me, and Gen G of all rosters. Again, people were really hinting that Gen G was the #1 Pacific team. Not in the upper bracket. They're going to have to start in lower round 1 to see if they can make any sort of impact before we start talking about Champions Paris. But now moving over towards the other region, we're going to talk about VCT EMEA. Like I was already talking about, Gentlemates and Apex with their losses. Not going to be in a position to be able to compete throughout playoffs nor Ascension, but my bad. I guess we're going to talk about VCT China. Start talking with the playoff bracket because that's been more than underway for quite some time now. So we can go ahead and just talk about where everything is located at as far as the bracket is concerned. We already have the winners round much. Dragon Ranger Gaming able to 2-0 Edward Gaming. Tyloo were able to beat All Gamers 2-0 as well. And we already had our lower round 1 matchups setting things up ever so wonderfully. Edward Gaming versus Trace Esports went down towards a map number 3, which Edward Gaming were able to win that one. All Gamers this morning were also, this past weekend, were also able to beat Fun Plus Phoenix 2-1, and things are really kicking and roaring on as far as the Chinese playoffs are concerned. Not a whole lot of upsets to really speak of. I think that the biggest one will probably be DRG taking down Edward Gaming, but now they're going up against the Chinese #1 team of XLG. Should be interesting to be able to see what that team is progressing to look like, and the same thing could be said for Billy Gaming on the other side. Going up against Tyloo, I'm sure some people were realizing while I'm calling the #1 Chinese team is still XLG. That's just because Wolves decided that they were not going to remember how to play the game this stage, and thus they are not in playoffs. So now going over towards VCT EMEA. As I was hinting at, once again, we'll hit it a third time. Apex and Gentlemates will no longer be in playoffs, and they're going to have to fight for their spot in futures to come. But for EMEA bracket and for all of the standings, here is how things have gone over to set ourselves up for the last few games worth to be played. Team Liquid and Team Heretics, the undeniable #1 as far as EMEA is concerned.
Yeah, and I mean, we did have some upsets as well that you mentioned. We did have Food actually upset Giant X in that group alpha. Though Giant X still sitting at that 3-1 score there, but Food would move up into that 4th space spot. You definitely want to be on the higher, as you said. Those two last teams, unfortunately, Gentlemates and Apex, getting kicked out and would have to fight for their spot. But right now, we do have, as you said, Liquid Heretics leading their group, followed by Giant X and Fnatic. It's going to set up some pretty good games, depending on how these final games go before getting in the playoffs.
Yep, should be a very fun time. Again, playoffs are going to be happening right around the corner for EMEA, and we'll give you the updates of what that looks like going on next Monday. Got to be talking about Americas, of course. That thing is the Wild Wild West. Absolute pun intended. Again, no lead for G2. We're having Busio being dropped for 100 Thieves. NRG going through all of their changes. That's where we're going to start the conversation. Versus MIBR. This is a team of MIBR that have really been coming in towards their own ever since their folly, I guess you could call it, at up in Toronto for the Masters tournament that happened in June. But I digress. Versus NRG, Mata was getting himself really in towards the thick of it. There with an ace. This is a different breed for an NRG, just completely running rampant. MIBR's Ospas, though, we know what this guy can do, especially when he's on the agent selection screen. You see that raise being hovered, you know you're in for a real good time. Here's the blast pack there with the showstopper for the ace. Didn't really need to do it, but did it anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, why not get some aces? Bebe wants to get into the action as well with that ghost, just completely dominating everybody's heads. I mean, go ahead and pop off on that pistol round. Why not? But let's take a look at the standings here. As you said, Sentinel's coming out on top here in that group. I do believe that does already give them a first round bye into playoffs, finishing 4-0. But looking at Group Omega on the opposite end, we do have a couple of ties between NRG, 100 Thieves at 3-1. So we'll have to see who tops that group as well to see who can get that bye from Group Omega.
Yep, should be a very fun time. Again, yeah, 2G's last matchup is against Sentinels. They're definitely not going to be taking that #1 seed. And, well, the #1 seed is still very much so contested in between 100 Thieves versus NRG. But that was the Week 1 matchup. So as far as head-to-head is concerned, a Busio-less 100 Thieves will maintain that #1 seed for now. But as we're continuing on, playoffs for Americas, they don't start until the 21st. So get your butts seated back here, same time, same place next week, so that way we can give you all the lowdown of what is going to be developing. But, babe, maybe you want to end up aiming like one of these pros and maybe not moving, but still cooking heads like what we just saw from Baby Bay. Why not get yourself in towards the mix for AimLab? It is the #1 trainer across the world. Here's a word from our sponsor.
Games are about competition, a way to test our skill and prove we are better. Challenge is in our nature. We need to know what we're capable of. How far can we go? It's a question that drives millions of gamers to push themselves and prove that it's only a matter of sheer will. Ever since first-person shooters came into the esports scene, players have never stopped defying the odds through the most important mechanic of them all: aim. Aim is everything. It's a set of skills that needs to be trained, and this is where science and gaming meet in Aim Labs. The aim trainer that redefines what gaming means, because science doesn't leave anything to chance. Winning is never a matter of luck. Every brief moment of greatness takes constant and unrelenting preparation, and that's exactly what Aim Labs is about. We enable players to thrive and upset the balance. Together, we elevate play.
Told you we were going to end up talking about it one more time. Let's go ahead and bring it up for those in the back. Blast Season 2 is kicking off. There's a lot of money up on the line, and I don't just mean for that championship that Vitality would love to be able to get back in their trophy case. I'm talking about just the bounties in general, and for a lot of these teams that are in attendance, some of them that you might not have heard of, they're not even remotely close as far as the VRS rankings are concerned. But we're going to start talking about some of the lower dogs showing up and absolutely taking the fight to a lot of the household favorites. Mostly starting off with the Ecstatic team, going up against Team Liquid. Team Liquid, as I'm sure that many of you remember, ever since IEM Cologne, we're actually bringing it to FaZe. Ultimate is gross. Someone save that poor man. But going up against Ecstatic on this map #1 to train, it was the map that never ended.
It was not, and some people are saying that some teams just don't want to win. Obviously, I think that they just want to give the fans a little bit more time to appreciate their gameplay. But 5 overtimes, that's right, we're talking about 5 overtimes in total for this match from Liquid versus Ecstatic, and you can say you'll see the clutch plays or fails. As you can see, both teams were going at it. Ultimately, it would be Team Liquid finally taking it at the end, but you have to imagine what it must have felt like for Team Liquid coming into this and going up against a team like Ecstatic. You expect Team Liquid to come out and just to win, but getting taken to 5 overtimes, either for Ecstatic, they probably were going this far, but at the end of the day, Team Liquid, though, had a little bit, to come up for in this, overtime, as we see #3 here, once again losing on to #4. Once again, it's going back and forth between both of these teams, and none of them can seem to find a way to end the stalemate.
Nope, none whatsoever until at least the final overtime would come through. Finally able to get themselves the 2-round swing was Team Liquid in the end. Good bait out there. Twist will take the chow, and he'll end up finding the kill, but still ticking time bomb. Molly counting down. Last terrorist side going to be looked at. Clutch secured. But here's where things got a little bit more funky. We continue to trade overtimes for overtimes, and as I was talking about, just AWPs all over the place, could not close things away for their team. As soon as we reached just that final overtime, that's where things finally got put to rest. It was a T side for TL. They lost the next round, but their CT retake to be able to call game was absolutely electric. Ultimate for 2, Twist there for the final one, and it just left one remaining player for Ecstatic in a very tough 1vx situation. Twist will find that last kill every day. He'll add some bags on top of it as well. Don't really think it was required, but hey, we'll take it. It went the absolute distance. I mean, for as many rounds as we had to see there on train, not the most favorite map out of the Counter-Strike community, but definitely beloved, and we're going to be talking about that map, I'm sure, for many moons to come. But hey, honestly speaking, is that just Team Liquid being bad on train, or is that just Ecstatic being that good? People definitely want to know, and people are really starting to question whether teams did want to win that map, or they were just trying to test out their mettle for different rollouts. You guys let us know in the comments down below what you think was going on throughout all of that. But we got plenty more to dive into. Again, the Underdogs really showing up here, going into Spirit's opening round matchup. They actually lost that map 1.
They did, and who would expect, IEM Cologne winners to drop their map 1 against a team, Passion UA, would end up taking that first map off off of Spirit here, and we were talking about a little bit before, donk just not really being the donk that we know and love coming out of these games, and it would be here as well where he would just not end up finding some of the kills that he needed going into this. But it's not only them. We do have teams such as Navi continuing to fall in some of their first round opening matches also.
Yeah, we talked about how Navi will be missing out for a extension of their playoffs, excuse me. And they lost this map versus TNL. Nobody saw this coming, right? I mean, being able to at least win it 16-14 as quick as they did was pretty massive. This one was probably the most interesting to me, too. Mongolz coming in towards this one, if you remember going back towards IEM Cologne Grand Finals, this was the map 3, and I could tell that they're testing out a lot of different rollouts to see if it was going to work, even versus OG. Go figure, it didn't. OG won this map, but clearly Mongolz are still preparing for that Spirit final.
Yeah, they really are, and I mean, after this, Mongolz would just go on to dominate OG, but again, these opening rounds left a lot to be desired for a lot of these teams, and we're talking about earlier, it may not be the opening round, but remember, Mongolz were late to this matchup, didn't get the veto, all right, but Ints did let them veto in the end, so they would eventually, find the maps that they wanted, but again, they're dropping rounds to this. Ints, Mongolz doing well, ultimately would move on, but again, dropping some of these maps and some of these rounds, kind of are like, is it the setting that they're in, not being at the LAN right away, is it being at home? We don't know, but it did leave a lot for some of the upsets. We're probably nice on some people trying to see their team finally getting some of those wins against some of the top dogs.
I mean, that's what's nice. You're just sitting there at home watching like the Mongolz, Vitality, and everybody else play like all these map modes combinations. Just download, load into a face-it match and see if you can try to do that. If not a scrimmage, you'd be surprised how quickly you'd be able to turn after playing the same map for the past 20 years. But hey, that sets up a wonderful stage 2 off of some very interesting stage 1 antics. And we already kind of talked a little bit about stage 2 just at the top of the show. But just to break things down a little bit further, G2 versus Spirit did deliver. G2 being able to at least force it out to a map 3 was probably the one that I was mostly looking at. But definitely glued to my screen. We already talked about it. But I mean, just watching Astralis, Hooksy in particular, just leading the charge. I think it was like 7 rounds in a row on that map 3, was just absolutely insane. Only giving away 2 rounds over towards Navi on that nuke is something absolutely stellar. Claiming that prize for that bounty. Here's some of those stage 2 highlights.
Yep, and once again, we're talking about it. Here we go, G2 versus Spirit. G2 would end up, Spirit would ultimately winning at the end, but G2 coming back here and actually just kind of really putting Spirit to the test. And once again, we were talking about Spirit, we're talking about donk in the majority of these matches leading up to the Blastbounty LAN. But right now, we have Spirit actually coming up clutch for him at the end, but it would be here on Ancient, though, that G2 would get their lickbacks on this. Actually, pretty convincing win out of them here on Ancient against Team Spirit to even up the series 1-1.
Yeah, G2 13-8 on Ancient. And again, that's a map mode combination that was working really well for Spirit versus Mongolz in that grand finals. I'm pretty sure it was like map number 2 or whatever, but Spirit were just undeniable when it came down to Cologne. Brought up towards the Dust 2, and well, funnily enough, Dust 2 was the map that they did lose in their opening stage, but Spirit clearly looked a lot better there. Hopping over towards the VP versus FaZe matchup, and well, for FaZe, they're still struggling to find their identity, man. Like that new old team smell, bringing in Rain again, Elige trying to come in towards the zone, Frozen trying to figure it out, old man Kerrigan still trying to make these plays happen, but VP, like, honestly speaking, in that overpass, taking that map number 1, in my opinion, won them their entire series. FaZe just looks so flat in that Inferno.
Yeah, and here's where the Astralis and Navi game that you're talking about, and Astralis just actually coming on top. As you said, to believe they did get that bounty that they are able to claim against Navi here, and this is massive. This was just such a smackdown here on Nuke at the end of it, and you're not expecting this to come out of Navi here. And I mean, once again, Astralis coming up clutch in games maps number 1 and maps number 2 and number 3.
Yep, Hooksy really getting a lot of the work done there, even at the end. Bit will find the final kill, but no kit, not enough time. Bomb will be exploded, and you're going to be getting sent home if you're Navi. Again, in 7 years, they have not been seen this early outing of a tournament in a whole 7 years. Astralis sending Navi packing, absolutely hilarious scenes. Just as a follow-up for all the other matches, again, we did talk about the Mongolz earlier on from their sportsmanship out of ENCE. They ended up continuing on in the tournament. They had eliminated Pain Gaming. Liquid, off of their early antics, eliminated Furia, which is definitely a shocker to me off of what Furia looked like back at the Dallas Major, as well as recent tournaments. Mouse beating Bait, and then Vitality got their lookbacks. If you're unaware, that whole match streak did get concluded by Legacy in a best-of-1. This time it was a best-of-3. Vitality more than prepared. They sent Legacy home. So that's going to at least do it for Counter-Strike. Let us know what you're most excited for as the draft will be happening later on this week. We'll be giving you an update, I'm sure, on Rapid Recap as the weeks do progress. But we're going to be going back over towards Saudi Arabia, Esports Boulevard. We're still rocking and rolling with so many fun esports across the entirety of the week. And although the Week 5 did come to a conclusion, it definitely had its fair share of farewell, starting off with Warzone. This match was absolutely insane. They did match point finals for Warzone, but they didn't do it on the big map like how they had from last year. They did it on Resurgence, and if you're unaware, Resurgence is like a respawn battle royale. You got one player that's staying alive past a certain time threshold. They actually do get their teammates to respawn on top of them. Opening breakoffs are very important. Drop spots are much more chosen at the beginning. Falcons were completely isolated away from the map, but for a lot of people, just to completely rip the Band-Aid before the clips even finish, they didn't even podium. So tough scenes coming all the way through, but it was a fun tournament.
I mean, this is one of the ones where I'm just trying to figure out where to pick and play to choose everything. I finally did get to see some of these clips though, and I mean, we finally had champs ending in some of the previous weeks, and then we had EWC with Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and now we're on to Warzone here. As you said here, we're taking a look at some of the teams trying to stay within that storm here to see if they can get it off. Twisted Minds though, great job by them. They would actually end up bringing home the win after 10 rounds. And I mean, this was kind of crazy at the end.
Yeah, absolutely insane. Again, just playing the gas, playing the corner, last little bit of high ground as well, putting themselves in a situation for Twisted Minds to be able to come away with this victory. Only took 10 matches for them to be able to seal the deal. I want to say that they got put on match point finals just about like the game previous. They're hearing all the gunshots go down low. Here comes Almond for the Chow. Almond, the old head from S&D. Chow's back in the day with Aiden. You guys remember when Warzone first came out, this guy was everywhere, could not get him off the screen. And then Z Schmidt, of course, doing it for Gary, man. Gotta appreciate the entire trio that is Twisted Minds. Damn, did they work so hard, and they played that entire tournament so well, pushing gunfights where they needed to, staying alive where it was utmost important, high ground to high ground, building to building. They had a really tough drop spot on the Resurgence map, but still made it work. Twisted Minds taking it home in 10.
Yep, and again, those club points kind of come out clutch for them, especially getting that championship. They're going to be lifting that trophy and taking home some of that gold as well with them off the backs of the teams that they beat. But let's take a look at the kills here, 128. So, of course, maybe not the team with the most kills out of it, but at the end of the day, it's that score that all that matters. Getting that first place ultimately did help them out to get that win, and then finalizing off of that game 10 on match point to get number 1. Of course, they're being Gentlemates, Virtus Pro, 100 Thieves, taking them all down throughout this series. A great job to them.
Yep, Warzone absolutely rocking and rolling. Gentlemates fans were going crazy. Some say that they're even crazier than Optic fans, and I would believe them. But still top 5 coming through for the Falcons. Not even podium, actually just standing up there on the introduction stage. I still remember Hisoka, like he was standing over top all VP, he was pointing at him, laughing, and be like, y'all ain't doing nothing. And then Hisoka and Falcons didn't even podium. So real tough scenes to be Falcons as far as Esports World Cup is concerned. They are not getting those club championships. But we're continuing on with the conversation as far as Esports World Cup is concerned. Now we're going to be moving over towards some digital footies. I'm talking about FC 2025, of course. This tournament was absolutely insane. If you're a fan of football, you definitely want to go back and watch some of these games.
Yeah, and I definitely was trying to go back and watch because, of course, Sunday is also football for regular sports, so we're watching between both of them, digital and real life, but this was a great tournament just in general. I mean, we saw some of this last year going into this one, and as the caption says, it was nonstop action between all the teams, just back and forth play from each of them, but I mean, actually watching the control and the play from both of them, looking up, gets the pass back, goes off to the side, kicks it out, and that is going to be the end for it, 5-3 with the win there. So great job for them to kick it off. No pun intended for this.
Yeah, big moments coming through here for Team Liquid at the end. Manu Pator going to be able to take this one, going home. Beautiful trophy. And again, for FC 2025, this, alongside Apex Legends, was one of the last additions for their mid-season championship to be played at the Esports World Cup. Shout out GeoGuessr, otherwise we wouldn't have had SC championships here, of course. But you know, hey man, big moments coming through from Team Liquid at the end. They get the double podium, 1 and 3. Bryce just losing out for Vitality. That is some really good club championship points.
Yeah, it is, and they're gonna be really happy with that going forward. And as you said, that trophy looked really good, especially with the FC on top of that. I like the little switch up there for it. So congratulations. I hope we see a little bit more of the sport action taking place, because you know we love football all across the world here, and can't wait to see how they implement it going forward with some of these teams as well. But as we've been talking about through the last couple of weeks here, those club championship points have been racking up, and as we move into the latter half of the EWC, they're getting more and more important.
Yeah, they are getting absolutely important, right? As far as it all stands right now, we do have 3 gold medals for Team Liquid, including what we just saw for FC 2025. They sit up top of the totem pole at 4,200 points. Falcons, albeit bouncing out the way that they did in Rainbow Six and a handful of other esports as well, the top 5 in Warzone most importantly, they're still sitting at second just because they are quite literally competing in everything at 3,700 points. 3,150 for Team Vitality, and then Virtus Pro at 2,400. That's the biggest jump, and then Twisted Minds off their 1,000 they just got, jump all the way up to 5th. But that is your top 5 as far as club championships are concerned, and we still have 2 more weeks of competition going on. Week 6 about to be kicking off here. We'll be talking about that in a few moments' time. But we got to jump back over towards DC because SuperNova, I talked about Melee, I talked about Ultimate, but it is the biggest Super Smash Bros. Tournament of the year. And I mean that because it is not just the N64 combo contest. They also had their massive outing as far as a tournament is concerned. And not to mention, Ultimate and Melee were ripping and roaring, breaking records for the most entered tournament. We had Smash 4, and we had some old school games going on. I was DMing Eli. Me and Eli play a lot of Super Smash Bros. With each other, and like going back and watching like the way that Brawl was played back in the day. Diddy having 2 banana peels, crazy. Ice climbers, broken. No wonder we were so miserable playing this game for a whole year.
Yeah, I was watching that as well from that side. Definitely don't want to get stuck between those ice climbers. Have had that happen to me before from a seasoned player when I myself am very much of a noob at it. But let's take a look at it. I mean, we're going across everything. Then we, of course, as you said, we had Smash 4 going across, and then ultimately we would also get into Smash 64 at the end of the day. I mean, that's the game I grew up playing, you know, with my friends. And let's look at the Pikachus here going back and forth against each other.
Yeah, shout out Wario, of course, never going to be playing his main character, not so long as he's playing this game right here, but ends up defeating Wizrobe. Of course, Wizrobe, if you're unfamiliar, a very decorative Falcon player. Yoshi, very good game for them, and Kuraba letting them absolutely have it. Defending his title, the Japanese Yoshi player will win SuperNova for his 3rd time in a row. Good sportsmanship being shown there at the end, but we also had Rivals of Aether. I know, not a Super Smash Brothers game, but shout out Spargle, man. Like, not only competing at a high level in one game, but also getting a silver medal at Rivals of Aether as well. That guy was all over the place.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what you can kind of expect out of fine game tournaments. You have a little bit of crossovers there, but congratulations to the winners in their respective games. I mean, we've had so many to crown throughout all of it. And as I can see from my coworkers here who absolutely love Smash, they were having a great time. I was having a lot of Smash explained to me as we were going through, and there's a lot going into it. I was trying to go in one ear. I was trying to contain it all, but ultimately had a fun time watching all of it, especially a lot of those pop-offs as well.
Yeah, it was absolutely electric. I mean, you cannot ask for more emotion to be displayed until you watch a top 8 Super Smash Brothers bracket. I almost said it like one specific Super Smash Brothers tournament, but like there was like pop-offs across every single game, including Rivals of Aether. So thank you, SuperNova, as always, for putting on an amazing event. We look forward to it every single year, as Super Smash Brothers will be put on the shelf, I'm sure, until we talk about Let's Make Big Moves. But now we're going to be talking about some Call of Duty. Did you think we forgot about you guys? Never that, because it's all over my timeline. I cannot get rid of it. It is super annoying. Rostermainia has been ripping and roaring across the entirety of the timeline, and you are not safe if you are on the flank, or you're waking up a coffee. Shout out Benjay and his team. Here's the update as far as what we know for all of the moves so far. And still, again, rumors. We do have some players at least saying where they're going to be staying off, but the most recent one probably has to be Joe DeCease being guaranteed to staying with Movie Star Koi. We know that he was being looked at for a lot of individuals across the entirety of the league, Where he's going to end up at, nobody really knows. Another big, massive conversation throughout this past week was with the Miami Heretics. What the hell's going on with this camp? We got verbal agreements. We're talking about other things being written in just fake, fabricated words before contracts are even there. Nobody knows what's happening right now, but I guarantee that the Heretics, much like they said in their post, are going to continue on with the Spanish full narrative. Joe Deceive saying with Toronto Koi, definitely should be a fun time. And then Optic Gaming actually coming out and talking about some very fun stuff they're about to be doing here very, very soon. We know that Hitch and Team Summertime, they absolutely love to be throwing off a lot of these different tournaments throughout the entirety of the offseason. And then Hitch is back at it again with Optic. TSC are going to be throwing on throwback tournaments in Advanced Warfare, BO4, Halo 3, Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3. I don't know why I said throwback COD tournament. Halo 3 kind of found its way in there. But the old man squads versus the new squad should be a very fun time for that main event to be able to see what the 1v1s are going to look like inside of Optic's house. But as Rostermainia continues on throughout the weeks, make sure that you guys are following along for the Global Gaming Network channel as we continue to break down the roster moves, as well as everything else to do with the shows throughout the entirety of the week. But as we do say farewell to EWC Week number 5, Chris, now we got to say hello to EWC Week number 6. The esports never end.
It never ends as well. But, you know, I am a little bit happy this week is beginning because Teamfight Tactics has started this morning as of the time of the recording. We've already had some of the matches finishing, and, well, it's going to be a lot of fun, especially for the Teamfight Tactics. We did put out a power rankings for that. If you haven't seen it, go take a look at it because it is for us. But let's take a look at some of these other games. We have Tekken, we have Street Fighter right after the back of EVO, and then Rocket League also taking the stage in PUBG. We already have PUBG Mobile, but we will have more chicken dinners to go around. That'll be starting tomorrow, Tuesday the 12th. We just have a jam-packed week 6 coming up, don't we?
Yeah, they sure do, man. And you know what they do say, Chris? I love me some chicken. Dude, yeah. Tekken, Street Fighter coming in towards the mix. We got Rocket League Grand Finals happening, Teamfight Tactics groups, and then their finals will be played on Friday. Yeah, like you said, on the back end of EVO, we just had SuperNova just this past week. Fatal Fury was actually in the first week of EWC as well. Like, it's just, you cannot keep ourselves contained as far as this office is concerned. But what are you mostly looking forward to this entire week, you viewers at home? I'm looking forward towards the draft that we're about to be having for the Blast Open. Can anybody get that massive bounty off of Vitality's head? Is Spirit going to continue to dominate everything, or is Mouse going to get their look back? Let us know in the comments down below. And as always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and follow along for all of the Global Gaming Network channels and all of its videos included, whether it's Queued Up, Skill Diff, Rapid Recap, or Here and Today in Esports. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.